All right, it's a rather brisk fall day outside. It's like a high of maybe 60, definitely in the 50s. I think it's a good day to stay in. Well, I was out earlier today, but it's a good day to stay in now and go ahead and weather this Berkshire I have. This is number 744. It's my most recent Berkshire I've been working on. Probably my last, well, this is my last one. This is my 5th scale Berk I have. So at this point, I have a pretty healthy collection of scale Berks. So I don't really, I'm not in the market necessarily for another one, but if one showed up for a good price, I most certainly wouldn't put that past me to get one. But for now, this is the last one I'm working on for the time being. This is a Lionel Legacy Berkshire from the 2017 run, I believe. It was originally a Pierre Marquette 1225. As you can see, it was pretty extensively modified. You know, I had to add a Mars light. The headlight, I removed the headlight visor because why not? And renumbered it to 744. You'll see on the front here, as a purpose for the 744, I replaced the pilot with a scratch built cast sheet steel plow pilot. I think it came out pretty good. It's made out of sheet brass and styrene. I'm gonna do a video on making one of these in the future, so that'll be coming. See, I re-decaled it, repainted the front of the smoke box. The engine was already black to begin with, but the smoke box was a lighter color, so I went ahead and painted that black. So I blacked out the whole thing, painted the valve gear, did everything I need to do before the weathering. And you'll see, I did a weathering video, I don't know, a few months ago at this point, about weathering. So I did all the pre-weathering stuff. See, I blacked out the bell on the front, blacked out all the running gear, all the pop valves, the whistle, everything I want to have black, I already did. I also had a cab curtains in the back, made out of some tea bags. Replaced the builder's plates because they were Pierre Marquette 1225 builder's plates. They had the different date on them, so I just made my own. You can see they're not perfect, but when the weathering happens, a lot of it's gonna get covered up. You'll see a lot of this engine, a lot of things. I don't know what the deal was with this engine, but a lot of the paint and stuff just didn't take very well. You see a lot of like globby paint, like here in the number plate, and you know, areas over here you see some of the residue from the super glue. You can see it's not totally perfect over here or up here. My stuff usually doesn't look like this, or doesn't look quite as bad as this. But the nice thing about the way I do the weathering with the weathering powders, you'll see it masks that up all pretty good, so you hopefully won't even notice when it's all done. So let's go ahead and, well, I'm gonna clean up my workbench first, and we'll go ahead and get started with the weathering. This here's my next major project after I complete the 744, whatever else I want to do, other small things. But this is the next one in the pipeline. This is an MTH Berkshire, Proto Sound 2, Louisville and Nashville from like what, 2001 or so. So it's a little older. You see it's in like 1 million pieces right now. It's got a real shitty paint job on the running board. It's missing all the appliances in the front end. It has no pilot. It's got all kind of stuff taken apart. But the plan here is to make it to one of the former Wheeling and Lake Erie Alco built Berkshires, the former W&LE engines. They were a class S4 on the nickel plate, number in the 800 series. So the plan for this is going to be maybe the 805 or the 814. I'm not sure. It runs fine, but cosmetically it needs some help, and that's going to come next after this. So maybe I'll do a video on that. But yeah, a little sneak peek while I'm cleaning up the workbench. All right, so first, the biggest drawback to this weathering method, it has to be the mess that it makes. So I am trying to be proactive with it. So I set up all kind of paper towels, around it, behind it, anywhere the weathering powder can go, it'll go everywhere. I also wrapped up my little turntable as well as the little foam blocks I use, also in paper towels, a little bit of masking tape to hold everything down. The foam I really, not totally necessary, but I don't have a ton of foam. And it's like, I don't know, it's only a few bucks to buy more, but I already have these, and when they get covered in weathering powder, it makes them kind of dirty and just a hassle to deal with. So I just figured I'd avoid that and wrap them up in some paper towels, so that way I can reuse it again. Nope, as soon as this thing is not sitting on me straight. Hold on. There we go, it's a little better. It drives me crazy when it looks like that. But yeah, I wrapped everything up. I'm not gonna mask anything off, actually. I am gonna mask up the engine. I initially thought I wouldn't have to, but when I go to, because I'm not gonna clear coat it till after I finish weathering, but I will mask off at least just the headlight, the Mars light, and the cab windows with some very poor masking, you'll see, just to protect it from the clear coat. Whenever I go to clear coat it, I'm gonna do that, wait till I'm done, at least with the base coat of weathering, to apply any kind of clear coat. So I'm gonna do a little bit of masking, and then we'll get started. Okay, so here's my very poor masking job like I was talking about. It gets the job done, doesn't look pretty. Same thing over here on the cab windows, it looks pretty terrible, but whatever, it's fine. You know, all we need to do is just cover up the lenses. That's all really that matters. You know, I see all those other people I watch, what they do the weather, and they have these beautiful masking, like they go right in every single window insert here and you know, over the glass. I don't have anything close to the patience to do that. And like I said, you only need it for a few seconds while I just rattle can it with a little bit of clear coat. So it doesn't have to look good, it just has to be practical, and that's what this accomplishes, so this should be fine. Over here, the weathering powders I'm going to use pretty much 3 colors. Maybe another color here or there, but these are going to be the bulk of it. Grimy black is going to be the base of everything, so everything will be covered in grimy black. Then I'll use dirty white and ash gray in selective places where appropriate, but the whole engine will get a coat of grimy black. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. I got my brush over there, and I'm going to put on some gloves that I use. I have these, where are they? I got these gloves here that I use. I think I got them from Home Depot. I think they're like gloves you use to, you know, flush out like sewage. But whatever, they get the job done, and you can see how dirty they are. Like I said, the name of the game here is dirty. And I guess you are weathering, and you are making it look dirty, so this is it's very real life. So these gloves help me keep my hands clean, because it's just a pain to go wash your hands every 5 seconds to clean them, you know, just to get them dirty again. So this helps. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and I'll update when I have probably the first base down. I was so caught up in talking about my gloves and my weathering powder, I actually forgot a key part of this before I do the weathering powder. That's apply some boiler streaking with weathering pencils. I got this technique from Norm Charbonneau. I'm sure a lot of you have watched his videos before, his weathering videos. He's kind of like my inspiration when it comes to model weathering. I don't do the same technique as him. He does the airbrush, but a lot of his things, like small things like dry brushing and the boiler streaking, I did learn from him in some of his videos. So this is a Norm technique. He does these little, they're AK weathering pencils. I think that's what they are. Yeah, AK weathering pencils here. I bought 2 colors. I only have 2 colors. I have dirty white, which is this one, and I have neutral gray. When they're on the engine, they're very close in color. They're, you know, the dirty white, as you can see here, they're real close. The dirty white's just slightly lighter. But I like to start using just a little straight edge here, a little ruler, and applying a couple boiler streaks just where I feel like we're applicable. I don't apply a whole bunch, but I apply a fair amount. And I just do that because that way, when I hit the weathering powder with them again, or when I go over the weathering powder, it helps to make them a little more subtle. I can't get mine to look as good as Norm does. I think it might have something to do with him just being a better modeler, but I also think it has to do with he uses an airbrush and the way he can blend them in. It's a little bit different than weathering powders. But I have used weathering pencils on all of my recent weathering jobs, you know, within the last 6 months or so, and I've gotten pretty good results. I'm pretty happy with it, so I'm going to go ahead and do the weathering, or the boiler streaking with the weathering pencils here. So I didn't go too crazy on them. Just put them in largely towards the back, a little bit up towards the front, did on both sides. You can tell the 2 colors I used. You can see there's really, when they're on the engine, you really can't see much of a variation. Here, actually, I try using my finger to wipe away a little bit, just to kind of like make it a little more subtle. Don't really like how it looks, but it's okay. Again, when the weathering powder goes over, it'll all look uniform anyway. But yeah, this is a good technique. I'm glad I learned this from Norm. I need to get some more colors too. I like to get some black ones and dark ones to do some boiler streaking, or some streaking up along the smokestack, which I do with some paint. You'll see later in the video. But I like to get some more colors and really experiment with this. But what I have now, I think it produces pretty decent results. All right, let's do this. Okay, so I got a base coat on the engine with the grimy black weathering powder. You can see it's not perfect, but it is enough at least to cover it all up, or at least cover up the boiler. You'll see the bottom half, the running gear and the cylinders, the pilot, all that. There's nothing there yet, but I did do the pilot. And I'm gonna get ready to clear coat it here with just some Krylon matte finish, like a rattle can clear coat. Again, I know some people like to use something out of an airbrush or a little more fine than this, but this, again, works for me. It's good enough for me. It's not gonna be the cleanest, but it's quick and dirty, and it should get the job done. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply some clear coat, and then I'm probably gonna go back and hit some parts of the boiler again. I wanna be a little bit dirtier than this. It's still kind of light. Then I'll go through and I'll hit the bottom half as well. All right, so here's how the engine looks with a full coat of grimy black weathering powder over everything. So I got it all over the boiler, over the pilot, over the running gear and the wheels, the cylinders, all over the bottom, the cab. And yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. This is just the this is before the clear coat. I have not hit it with clear coat yet. So the engine right now has one clear coat over it. Oh, I just noticed I need to fix that. I'll get to that. But the engine has one clear coat over it, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with the second clear coat, and then we'll go ahead and move on to any kind of touch up I need to do with the weathering powders. It's still not perfect, and then the dry brushing. Okay, so while I'm letting the clear coat dry, it's gonna be a few minutes, talk a little bit about the weathering powder and just some things I was doing while I was hitting it, or I was hitting the engine with the weathering powder. The biggest thing I wanted to do was make sure everything I was applying was vertical. Of course, the application was just basically spreading it on there and getting it covered. But when I went back and applied further coats, or went back and evened it all out, I guess, I made sure to make the final pass over each area vertical. I think that kind of goes without saying, but everything, the streaking and just the general grime is usually going to be vertical to be washed down in real life with the rain and such. So I wanted to make sure that the weathering powder application reflected that. You can also see how dirty it is. Just after doing the base end, you can see how much I covered, how much of the paper towels and such is covered. So I really tried to make sure. That's why I have so many paper towels here, so that you make the cleanup process fairly easy. But yeah, I think it came out pretty good. I see a few areas here I want to touch up. Maybe I'll have to do some paint thing on that one driver. The second driver from the rear, I gotta touch the rim up a little bit. A couple other areas I can see, like I didn't hit the low water alarm. Whoops. Dynamo could use a little bit more around the pops. That area around the pop valve could use a little bit more. But I mean, even then, it doesn't have to be totally perfect. You're not going to see it that closely. But like the pilot, I might use a little bit more, just the whole front end with the pump, the air pump shields. But overall, yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So, like I said, I'm going to go through and apply a little bit more touch up with the weathering powders, and then I will go back and we'll move on to the dry brushing and the more streaking. All right, so at this point I have the engine is all pretty much finished up with the grimy black. I think it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna start going the other colors I have here. I have this dirty white, which I just opened up, and I give it a good shake, and you can see it's a little bit choppy. That'll be fine, it'll break up. I also have ash gray. I'm gonna use the dirty white pretty much anywhere in the lower parts of the engine where road grime would accumulate. So like spots like the pilot, the lead truck, the drivers, the trailing truck, maybe the bottom part of the cab and around the firebox, and anywhere in the bottom of the engine I'm going to use, or the cylinders, I'm going to use the grimy or the dirty white. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that, like I said, in the areas I just mentioned. Okay, here's the result of some of the dirty white. I don't know how noticeable it is in the front end, but I did hit the pilot with it, the bottom of the pump shields here on the front. You can see some of the steps, and over on the side I hit like the pilot truck, the sides of the steps, a little bit of the cylinders, and then I haven't hit the drivers yet. I'll save that for later. But I did get the trailing truck and as well as the bottom of the cab. Did that on both sides. But again, it's real subtle. Subduality, is that a word? I don't know. If it isn't a word, I'm making it up, and it means the act of being subtle. But subduality is really key here. You don't want to make it too obvious. It just has to be little highlights, I guess. So I'm going to go through now. I'm going to use the ash color powder in some of the same areas, but I do want to hit the firebox with it as well as the areas around the firebox. So the trailing truck, maybe the rearmost driver, but I want to dry brush that first, and then I'll apply the weathering powder. But that will eventually get a lot of that paint, or the weathering powder, that color. But the ash is new. I've never used the ash before. You see, it's like a gray color. It's an ash gray. So I've never used this before, this color. So we'll see how this looks. All right, so I hit everything with the lighter colors. You can see that there's a result of the ash gray in the firebox. I kind of like it. It's like a nice, like very subtle and like matte looking gray. I did hit it with like one pass of grimy black just to tone it down slightly, but I think it looks pretty good. I also did a pretty good amount on the trailing truck as well as on the pilot truck, you can see over here. But you notice now I have the engine, the drive wheels like suspended in the air. Because now I'm going to take my little Z1000 or Z, I don't know, whatever this thing is, my little MTH transformer and some jumper cables, and I'm going to run the engine in place and do some dry brushing on the drive wheels. Now, my setup you'll see is a lot different, or a lot more basic than with the fancy rollers or whatever, but it gets the job done. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that up. It's very simple, and we'll go from there. All right, so here it is. I got my Z1000, and I have two jumper cables, one for power, one for ground. and they connect. The power one connects right on the little alligator clip, connects onto the pickup roller, and then the ground one connects to basically anywhere in the engine that's not the pickup roller for ground. It completes the circuit, and I got a running engine here. Again, I don't need any rollers or anything, and this works just fine. These came from my friend Nick, the Kiski Division on YouTube. These alligator clip cable things. He bought a pack for the same reason on Amazon. I think they came in like a pack of 6 or something, and he was like, "Do you want these?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll take them." So I got 2 from him. So thanks, Nick. I've used these tremendously. They're really helpful in weathering, especially for stuff like this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the grimy black first, just to go over any areas that I might have missed on the drive wheels, because I hit it when the engine was stationary. So wherever the rods were resting at, I didn't quite get all those areas. So I'm going to hit that just so it's a nice uniform look over the whole thing. Then I'll go through with some dry brushing. I'm going to use a little bit of gray, a little bit of tan, and then I'll finish it off with some weathering powder. So I'll show that as I go through each step. Okay, so hit everything where necessary. So now I'm going to move on to the dry brushing of the drivers here. And I have some acrylic paint. This is medium gray acrylic paint. I'm just going to paint it right out of the jar, or the lid. And I'm going to use one of my really shitty brushes, probably this one. I'm just going to hit the entire driver in gray. It's going to look very light. And then I'll go back and I will darken it with weathering powder. So yeah, I think it shows up in the camera here. You can see I hit the rearmost 2 drivers with the gray, dry brushed gray. So now I'm going to go through back with weathering powder. I'm going to hit it probably with the ash gray and maybe a little bit of dirty white, we'll see. And then I'll tone it down where necessary, if necessary at all, with the grimy black. All right, so here's how it looks now with the dry brushing and the weathering powder completed. Again, I did the light gray followed by the ash gray weathering powder, and then a little bit of dirty white, and then black as well. I actually might do a little bit more black just so it blends in a little bit more. But one thing I was sure to do as well was to hit the surrounding areas around the drivers, like you see back behind there, above it, on the firebox, the trailing truck, with the same colors of weathering powder, just so it doesn't make these drivers so starkly contrasted. You know, if they're going to get dirty, everything else around them is going to get dirty as well. So I'm going to go now do the same thing on the other side, and we'll finish off with a little bit more dry brushing along the boiler. All right, last step is going to be a little bit of dry brushing, just to do some additional boiler streaking, in addition to what I already did with the weathering pencils at the beginning of the process. So I got some white acrylic paint, and I have this, what's left of a paintbrush. It's essentially like this little, like it won't focus. It's not much of anything, but it's just enough that I can make some nice little boiler streaking coming down. I like to do it coming around from the washout plugs here. Usually I do it by the whistle, maybe like a streak or 2 coming down from the pop valves, you know, little things like that, just real subtle. I might do a little bit of dry brushing as well around like some areas up around here on the smoke box. Do a little bit of that, and then I'll do the same thing with some jet black, flat black, to make some soot streaks coming down from the smokestack. So there's what the streaking looks like coming down off the washout plugs. I did some on the other side as well, on some of the washout plugs and the whistle. I also did a little bit of black with some black acrylic coming down off the stack. Not totally happy with how this looks, but it is what it is. I really need to get some black weathering pencils. I think I'll get much better results, but I think for the time being, it's okay. A few more things I'm going to do here. Looking at some prototype pictures I was looking at in between this recording and the last one, there's a little bit more brown than I have put on this, so I think I'm going to put a little bit of brown along the bottom of the pilot. Again, that's based off prototype photos, maybe along the bottom of the cylinders as well. I might add a little bit here and there. I'm also going to do something to these cab curtains. I think they look great, but they're a little bit too vibrant, so I might either give them a wash or just go over them with either the ash gray or the black, or a combination of both, just to kind of tone them down slightly. But aside from that, this thing is pretty much done. So then I'll get a clear coat and you know, a little touch-up weathering. I want to get something on some of the headlight lens, will make it a little bit dirty. I also want to dirty up the cab windows, which again, I only have masked up for the clear coat, not for the weathering. So I am going to hit them whenever I finish all that up. And then the tender for this engine is still stock. It's still in its Pierre Marquette livery. still lettered for Pure Marquette. And I haven't changed it yet. I'm historically terrible at doing tenders. I always do wait to do them super last. And I actually have engines I've gotten like a year ago I still haven't done tenders for yet because I hate doing the tenders. Really no real reason for it, I just don't like it. But the tender on this thing still says Pure Marquette, and I actually would have gone further on with it, except it has the wrong style trucks for a nickel plate Berk. It does have the correct Pure Marquette style trucks. That's going to do me no good for a nickel plate engine. Now, I might just leave it as is. If I'm lazy, I might just leave it go. It's not that noticeable. But I really do want to change it. So that's why I haven't done anything with it yet. I haven't changed the tender. So I might just re-letter it, weather it, and then leave it as is with the technically incorrect style trucks. But for the time being, I have a bunch of weathered nickel plate tenders I can run it with. That's a nice thing about Lionel engines. You can just run them with whatever. The engine and tender don't have to match. So I might just run it with one of my nickel plate tenders for the time being, and until I get the Pure Marquette tender done. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the last couple things on here, then I'll show the clear coat, and I'll share a few final thoughts, and we'll wrap this up. All right, so here's the completed 744. You'll notice the one big difference here between it now and the last scene here is the addition of the white stripe. I decided to paint it on. I first painted the white outline on the front number plate based on a picture I have, or I saw of the 766, and I thought that looked nice, and I figured why not go the whole way and add the white stripe. So I did that mainly because my other engines, all my other Berks, which I have all over here, I was taking like a family portrait earlier, they're all black. Everything is blacked out. See this one, it's all blacked out, and I don't know, it's something different. I really like how the white stripe on the front looks with the plow pilot. I don't know why, it's like that contrast it creates. I think it looks really good. So yeah, I think it came out nice. You know, you can see here with the weathering pencils how they're just barely noticeable. And you can see how it blends in too with some of the boiler streaking I did by hand with the white acrylic coming down off the washout plugs and off the, up here at the top. But yeah, I think it came out really nice. All the front end detail too really pops with the weathering too, all that stuff I added, all the extra wiring. I think it really makes it look a lot better. And same up here with the whistle pull cord. I don't know, just that stuff to me really makes a big difference, especially with the weathering job. It enhances the weathering. I don't know how, but it just does. But see with the masking tape pulled off too, I did go back and I touched up some weathering on the windows and on the headlight and Mars light lenses. You know, so it wasn't such a stark contrast between the super clean areas and the weathered areas. So I think it looks good. But yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I've been wanting to do one of these, like a more tutorial and as I do it weathering videos. I did that one a few months ago, but that was more just me talking about it and not showing the actual process. So here you can really see the beginning to end process. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you are inspired to go weather something of your own. I highly recommend it. Having weathered stuff just looks so much better than having it look stock, and it makes your stuff look more unique too. And I like having the unique stuff that nobody else has. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.